So today we're going to be talking about navigating grant opportunities with insights from the NBA Foundation grant that Eric and Dream Alive won. And so super excited to have Eric join us as a guest today. And so for those of you that are new to Civic Champs webinars, my name is Gung Wang. I'm the CEO and co-founder here at Civic Champs. We provide volunteer management software. And so that's kind of what we do on a day-to-day basis. You can see some of the logos that are, I'm affiliated with, but the short version is, I was in corporate for the most part for a long time, and I did a couple of tech startups. That's where you see the more colorful logos here at the bottom, but wanted to do a third startup and wanted to do something that was in the social impact sector and came up with Civic Champs to help folks manage and recruit and engage volunteers. So that's a little about me, but more importantly, Eric, welcome to our webinar. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'll let you actually introduce yourself and yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Gun. It's a pleasure. And my name is Eric Mueller. I'm the CEO and president for Dream Alive. That's a nonprofit mentoring organization here in Indianapolis, Indiana. We mentor vulnerable youth towards career paths as a play to break and the cycle of poverty. So that's who Dream Alive is. That's who I am. I'm grateful to be here. Yeah, it looks like you got some of my background up there, and the short version of it is I've spent 21 years serving urban youth in different various functions. I come from an entrepreneur type family. Dream Alive is very grassroots and has grown a lot recently, and a little bit of background in business as well. So grateful to be here.
Yeah, no, it's thank you so much for carving out the time and being willing to share your success and how how other nonprofits could maybe do something similar. And so before we dive into the interview with Eric, just wanted to go over a couple logistics real quickly. One is we're going to be sharing the slides and recording for today afterwards, so you don't have to take a lot of notes if you don't want to. The presentation or sort of the interview is going to be about 40-45 minutes, and we're going to be following that with some Q&A. So if you want to put questions in the chat, we'll keep track of those, and I'll see if I can ask Eric those questions as they come in. But if we miss anything, we'll sort of circle back at the end to cover anything that we missed. But with that, let me share a little bit of context of how we actually got to meet Eric. So Eric's a customer, but more importantly, recently with the All-Star game based here in Indianapolis, Eric and Dream Alive were selected as a grant recipient from the NBA Foundation. And so you can see a couple really cool pictures of All-Star Weekend here with some of the students from Dream Alive. You can see here that looks like that's the skills challenge night, right? In terms of the picture down here on Saturday of the All-Star Weekend. And then I'll let Eric actually talk a little bit more about what that experience was like at a high level here as well.
Yeah, we really enjoyed our time for the All-Star game. This is two pictures here. My co-founder Tara Glenn on the far right picture, the larger man. He's a former Colts, Indianapolis Colts football player, great. And his son and another friend of ours who are mentors in our organization, just hanging out on All-Star Weekend with our kids. On the left, during All-Star Weekend, are scholars at Dream Alive. We call all of our students who we serve scholars. We got to bring about 60 of them to a Jordan brand event where we learned about marketing, the scholars did. They learned about product placement. They got to design their own piece of Jordan apparel and learn about careers. And so that's one of our kids doing a little rock, paper, scissors for what group he's going to be in with a representative from the Jordan brand. So that was a great weekend. Got to have a lot of engagements with our kids. Really grateful just to highlight Indianapolis. So many great things going on. And it was exciting to see Gung and Civic Champs honored, as well as so many other nonprofits in the area.
Yeah, we got to participate in the NBA pitch competition that weekend for on our end, and we Civic Champs got third place there, so that was pretty exciting as well. So let me reshare my screen here real quickly, and share just a little bit of a video that that introduces Dream Alive as well here. So let me pull that up, and we'll get the screen share here. Just redo this. I think this way we can get the audio. Just want to make sure we do share sound. Yep, perfect. All right. And yeah, I don't know, Eric, if you want to give a little bit of context before I hit play here.
Yeah, so Dream Alive, we mentor youth towards career paths, and we do a ton of programming. We offer 250 hours of mentoring per student per academic year. We focus primarily on career development, also includes a little bit of character development, but we mentor youth for 6 years, from middle school all the way through high school graduation. And the goal, not just high school graduation, but it's a career path. And the best way to share about what it is that we do with all the various programs and all the hours is to share a story of one of our scholars, one of our alum. And one of my favorite scholars to share a story of is DJ. This is his story. Actually got to hang out with him last week at an event. I can share more about that later, but yeah, it's just a great overview of, you can really see what it is we actually do.
Absolutely. And yeah, we'll dive into more about storytelling here a little bit, but let's hear DJ's story.
When I was younger, I couldn't imagine myself doing this, but then again, I also didn't know. So being where I am currently now and then just looking back, it's like, whoa. I literally see myself change. And a lot of it was from Dream Alive helping me elevate myself to the young man I am today. I'm Dwight Bunton, also known as DJ. I am a staff civil engineer, and I do engineering work here at SME. I came into Dream Alive when I was in middle school, 7th grade. That's when I met Eric. He gave me the rundown what Dream Alive was, which was just basically trying to help kids elevate themselves within school and then trying to give them a brighter future after.
Dwight's story really exemplifies what we're trying to do in Dream Alive. Our mission is to break the cycle of poverty by mentoring vulnerable youth towards career paths. It starts to be fun, and it starts to open up the possibility, hey, I could do this someday, or I didn't know I could go to college to do this, or I didn't know I could make this kind of money doing this. It's really cool to see that happen.
It was kind of like a wow to me, really, because I'd never been in a program like this. Mueller is a really persuasive guy to keep pushing you forward. Mueller came and approached me one day and was like, hey, have you ever thought about college? And I was like, is that like more school? So, and I was like, yeah, I thought about college a little bit. So he's like, but how are you gonna get there? Like, do you know what you want to do in college? Because you just can't go to college like high school. You have to go there for a reason, right? So he was like, how would you feel about a trip to an engineering firm? At this point, I don't even know what engineering is. So yeah, I'm just gonna say yes. There at American Structure Point, we walk around and I was like, huh, this is nice. That's when I ended up meeting Rick Connor.
My name is Rick Connor, and I'm the president of American Structure Point. We design roads and bridges and sewers and buildings and anything else that you could think of in the built environment.
He took me to lunch and asked me, he was like, so would you ever give engineering a try? And I was like, maybe if I can design and see it and do the steps, then I would love to do so. It basically have the idea of what's in my head, put on a sheet of paper, and then bring it to life. That's beautiful. Mueller sits me down. He tells me, like, Dream Alive wants to start doing internships with their sponsors. We want to do this to give kids like you a chance, and we're going to get it set up.
The idea was, no, we want this student to come in and work here and get paid for what they do. And if it looks like the shoe fits, then ultimately pursue a collegiate career.
The time at American Structure Point was awesome. So the first year I was with wastewater engineers, and they showed me like, okay, this is the field. This is the test we run for manholes, and then this is how we connect them all. And I liked it. I liked it so much that I was like, I want to pursue this. But after that, something drastically happened to our family with me losing my father. Something like that happens at a young age. You kind of lose your motive, because my dad was like my biggest support of me doing this. You start thinking about everything else. You start thinking about family. You start thinking about like, okay, do I really want to go to college now? I don't come from a family of riches. So, and it's 5 kids, 1 mom. So it's a lot going on in the household, and everybody has their own problems, and it's like you don't want to just up and leave. I believe at this point, this is what made me and Mueller bond even more. He was like, I will never leave you. He's like, I made a promise to you once you start. And this is what Dream Alive is about. You want to pursue it, we're going to make it happen. You want to see colleges, we will make it happen. We're here to benefit you. At that moment, I didn't know what to really think. I was like, whoa, wait, huh? Like, there's people out here that really cares about a kid that they don't even know. So I graduated and went to Indiana State. Currently, right now, I'm a staff civil engineer. It gives me hope. When you're given an opportunity like that, and that little tiny shot of hope and opportunity, and it grows to something like this of today, it's an amazing feeling. Who would have known where I would have been without Dream Live helping me or giving me that push to be where I am today? I have achieved some of my stepping stones to where it's like my next stepping stone isn't impossible. And I didn't feel alone at all, because I'm surrounded by kids that are just like me because of Dream Alive. It's not doing something by yourself. It's a team effort to get to the next step. And I feel as if every kid should give an opportunity to be in something like this, no matter what.
Well, hopefully you all were just as inspired as I was just now. That's a pretty amazing story here. Oh, no ads. um, the Yeah, no, that's awesome. Obviously, Eric, you're almost a protagonist there as well. But yeah, it sounds like I'm, if you were a coach, folks will run through walls for you, right? So that's awesome to hear. But I'm gonna, I want to come back to storytelling here in a little bit and really understand, that was so beautiful, and want to hear sort of your thoughts on how you put that together. But maybe we'll take a step back because, today, wanted to really focus initially here on just the MBA Foundation grant opportunity. How did you, come about it? How did you know about it? What were the initial steps that you took? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Well, yeah, as Gung said, we recently launched a partnership in November with the MBA and the MBA Foundation. Honestly, I had never heard of the MBA Foundation probably until a year prior to that, so probably a year and a half ago. What we do at Dream Alive, because we are partnering with so many employers to invest in the lives of our scholars like DJ, we are very well connected in the Indianapolis community. So we've partnered really with the Indiana Pacers for, say, the last 10 years. We've partnered with them. And to be candid, we've partnered in ways that I'm sure that they partner with other nonprofits in the area. Many times NBA teams or sports teams will give tickets to mentoring organizations for them to bring their students, to nonprofits to bring their clients. And so we've partnered in ways like that. We've used the Pacers space for large community service events. So we have a relationship with the Pacers, and we've really done some work in the community for a long time. And just like everything, at least what we do at Dream Alive and with most things fundraising, it's all about the relationships. And so The NBA Foundation was launched out of a lot of the racial unrest in 2020, and it exists to equip and empower Black and Brown youth for economic and wealth development opportunities. And so they really didn't start funding organizations or projects till late 2020, early 2021. So they've only been around for just a little bit. And so really the NBA and the Pacers were still learning about the foundation, and we just are a good fit. I mean, 95% of the youth that we serve are minority in ethnicity. It's the community that we serve. We're doing good things with youth, and so we really fit what it is the NBA Foundation wants to invest in. To be honest, that relationship, probably pretty lucky being in Indianapolis. You know, we had the All-Star game this year. I won't pretend to know exactly why we were chosen over thousands of others, but I would assume that that has something to do with it. So I would assume that a large portion of it has to do with us serving well with the Pacers and us serving our community and the All-Star game being here. And so it was a recommendation. Somebody from the Pacers said, you guys should apply for this. So we did. So that's kind of the context, and I'm happy to share more, but that's also kind of the foundation for my take on grant applications, is to treat them like relationships more than term papers.
Right. No, as a startup, we're fundraising in a very different way, right? But oftentimes, to your point, it's it can take a while, right, for that cultivation to happen, and at some point, maybe it's the right timing, and it happens. But tell me, I think this idea around relationship building is really interesting, because obviously, with grants and funding, you need funding every year, right? For Dream Alive, you need money for your staff, and so it can be very easy to focus on the short term and, hey, here's a grant opportunity, I'm going to apply for this, I'm going to apply for that, and apply for this. But it sounds like you're also advocating for more of a long-term relationship building, which is creating your own luck, so to speak, in the future, but that you're not going to necessarily see the returns on that in the short term. And so how do you balance your time and effort between those two types of things, sort of keeping the lights on the one hand, of course, while on the other hand, right, it's saying, hey, I'm gonna maybe make some strategic bets, even to say I'm gonna continue to cultivate these, and one of these 5 or 10 relations hopefully will down the road provide dividends.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. It is tough to balance, and it's really tough. I'm sure other people on this Zoom can identify with. You feel the weight. You want to provide. What you do is important. Everybody here, what you do is important. At Dream Alive, I like to talk about it takes a village. We're not the only answer. We need so many nonprofits working together, and it's hard. And there's times where it feels like we're all in this to help our clients and our city and our community, and we have to provide for our staff and volunteers and our clients, and there's a large weight, and there's only so many dollars to go around, and at times it can feel like we're competing for dollars when we don't want to be, but it often will feel like that, especially when it comes to a grant.
Right.
And I don't envy people who decide the grants too. Who are they to decide between helping a kid on a mentoring organization and giving a family a house or food or academic? I mean, there's just so much, but I do think that there's something to be said about seeking funding with an abundance mentality versus desperation. And it's so easy to be desperate. It's so easy to just think, I need to raise this for this year. I get caught doing it. I was doing it just earlier today. I need some yeses. But I think if you believe in what you're doing and you do a good job of tracking that impact of sharing that story, and keeping that the main thing, then shouldn't it be the same way when it comes to fundraising? It's and that's how a lot of our grants have played out is, okay, well, this grant organization said no. Who can I talk to over there? And not even to talk to find out what I did wrong on my grant, but who's making the decision? Do they know what it is that we do? Maybe they don't know what we do. Do they know what it is that we do differently than somebody else, or that we do really good with somebody else, or use even grant failures as an opportunity to advance that relationship, because somebody's making the decision, somebody decides the process. And if you're doing great work and people see that year after year after year, I mean, to me, it's only a matter of time. So document what it is you're doing, share your stories, build relationships. Don't be put off when someone says no. There's always no's. But as you get to know people and people get to know your organization, I think that you will have better luck. And it's not all the time. We had this, the NBA Foundation is the first time we've gotten like nationally publicly recognized grant dollars. You would think that would help with even local things here too. I get told no on so many things this year that I thought we were a shoo-in for. So it's just more opportunities to share the vision.
No, I like that a lot, right? So take the no's as a way to build relationship for yeses in the future, right? And I think that's awesome. Maybe tactically, I'm curious, obviously we were talking about this balance of time, but tactically, do you ever set like a goal, or do you say, hey, I'd like to do like just a coffee chat once a week or once a month? Do you have anything that mentally helps you keep track of, like, hey, I am building these relationships, or anything to guide folks?
No, that's a good question. Yeah, we actually have an internal platform that we developed 3 or 4 years ago, and it helps me. It's like a little CRM. It helps me to track relationships and track who I'm asking for what am I asking for, what are we asking for as a team, what's that tied to. We like to look at that. I like to look at that and look at volunteers and their network as well. But we do these things on our team. I'm a big Covey business guy, and so we do wildly important goals. And so one of the development team, one of our wildly important goals are those relationships. There's a certain number of relationships that I want to start each week. There's a certain number of relationships that I want to follow up with each week. And then there's a certain number of grant applications or grant research that I want to do each week. So that's how I keep myself accountable, because you can get lost in a lot of things. So I kind of set like a minimum. I want to do this, I want 2 new relationships. I want to follow up on 2 old ones, and I want to work on 1 grant. And so that changes from year to year. But we also track the lag of that too. So by lag, like for example, how much total asks did we do last year compared to the year before? That can also help me with, you use the term creating your own chances. Well, you miss all the shots that you don't take. So every year, I think 3 years ago we asked for $700,000. 2 years ago we asked for $1 million. Last year we asked for 3.5 million. This year I hope we can get to 5. I mean, my win rate is going down, but at least I'm to use a basketball analogy, my shooting volume is going up, and so hopefully we can hit a little bit more.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. No, that's great. And then do you, and maybe it's for context, right? You said, what is sort of your win percentage, and is there like an aspirational rate or goal that you have that says like, no, I think, for us, we'd love to win 30%, 50%, do you have a sense of what that looks like?
The percentages are so hard. So we're very grassroots. I mean, 10 years ago, Gung, it was me. And then I had a couple of guys and gals to help me out programmatic wise. So I didn't have time to track win rates. We didn't really start doing that until we developed this prep from like 3 or 4 years ago. And last year with the NBA Foundation grant, I mean, I've been doing this for 21 years. I've never seen a year like last year where people just said yes. And people have historically said yes to me more since 2020. I hate that it took 2020 for people to look at our community. But our win rate, our hit rate, whatever you want to call it, has never been higher than last year. I don't know if we'll ever hit last year. We had almost like, I don't have my spreadsheet in front of me right now, but I know it was over 75%.
Right.
And I don't know if I would love to do that again. I don't know if we'll ever do that. Right now I'm at 9% for this year. So I don't know. It's so hard. And I'm sure people who are in grant and development work here, I mean, funders change kind of what they're looking for from year to year. You know, organizations come and go. I mean, that's where I think the relationships play into it. Is I not only want to be applying for a ton of grants, but I want to apply for the right grant.
Yep.
And I don't know if I'm stealing questions from the future, but that you're going to ask me. But up until 2019, Dream Alive, we shut down grants for 5 or 6 years. So my first few years at Dream Alive, we did some grants, and I saw mission creep. I saw just that little desire to, well, we just change a little bit and then we'll win this grant. And I thought that was terrible. It's terrible to distract from our mission, from our impact. So we completely cut out grants for a long time because we want to apply to grants that match our strategic vision for our organization, our strategic plan. And so that's what we do now. So when I say we're applying for much more, well, I'm not just applying to everything. Like, we're applying to the ones that we think that we're going to get because it matches what our impact areas are, what our strategic plan is, what our relationships are. And I think that is almost as important, because you just waste time and you'll lose vision on what it is that makes your program impactful.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, we can certainly relate here, right? Is on the Six Champs end too. Like, it's easy to be distracted by shiny new things and, you know, staying true to our mission and cause. Yeah, any advice for folks in terms of finding that sort of best fit or good fit funder? You know, from Dream Alive, like, what's your methodology? How did you go about finding them? Obviously the NBA Foundation was very unique, right? But, you know, how do you think about that? Are there tools you use?
Yeah, well, I think a foundation, how do we go about finding them? And then tools, that would be a little bit different. Like, finding them, I would just encourage you to know who the players are in your community for grant and foundation work and donors. So here in Indianapolis, I've been here long enough to know, and the only way I have known is started to ask people who have been here longer than I have and question everything and take meetings and learn that. So, I mean, that was a lot of the work early on, even before we applied for some grants, was I just needed to know who's doing this work, why are they doing that, what is their mission. And we kind of started a short list over here at Dream Alive. And I think the other thing that was a huge tool is just tracking your program qualitatively and quantitatively. So, we have the story and storytelling of DJ, but also we base everything on measurable outcomes and data, and we've integrated data into everything that we do. And not only does that data help us run a better program, we might see that, impact is more efficient if we're doing 10 hours a week with youth instead of 20, and that's important for us to know. We might see grades go up 1 year or go down 1 year, or suspension rates, or all those things. But regardless, those help us on the programming end. They also help us on the funding end. Funders want to know, that stuff, and they want to know that you can report on that. I can't tell you the
Right.
number of times I've talked to funders who are just impressed that you're actually tracking it.
Yep.
That's the biggest tool, is track what it is you're doing, and don't be afraid to learn if you're not doing it well. You can help you do it better, and it can help you tell a story.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And you shared a couple examples of sort of your annual report and how you talk about impact here. Let's pull that on screen as well, so other folks can see. And so, yeah, maybe can you just share a little bit of, what we're looking at here?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is helpful. These are a couple of documents and handouts that I found helpful in fundraising. One is our annual report. So we always do an annual report, and in-house. And I really try to capture, our team captures so much data that it's really hard to decide what to share. Our annual report, I think it's like 25 or 26 pages long. It's long. It doesn't have just numbers, it has stories, but I think it's very important to have some sort of document publicly that you can share. Hey, this is everything that's going on in my organization. And we like to highlight improvements from last year, or we like to compare things to our students' academic history or other students in the school. I mean, it's just a great, I like to say that that's the content from which every one of our grants and every one of our donation asks. I mean, all of it lives in that annual report, and we'll track it each year. And then I really find it helpful to have something that's just one page that kind of like, okay, here's the executive summary. 99% of the time, the world that we live in, people just want the executive summary. They just want the one pager. They just want to know there's too much going on. But the annual report ends up being very good, and grant applications that they want a lot of data. And even as for yourself internally to, okay, this is where I'm answering all these questions for grants. But yeah, I find these very, very helpful. Last thing I would say, that one page is really helpful when it comes to those relationships and asking questions and figuring out what things to apply for, what kind of fit that you are.
Yeah, tell me a little bit more about that. Like, how do you use that? Is that like, do you bring it to the coffee chat or the conversation and walk through it and use it to ask questions, or how would you strategically go about doing that?
Anybody that I meet that I'm unfamiliar with or is unfamiliar with my organization, when we share about the organization, I always share the one pager. I mean, I always use it as a point to tell our story, to tell what it is we do, as a handout. It doesn't overwhelm people. My annual report, if I meet somebody for the first time, it's just going to overwhelm people.
Right.
We're in the process of attempting to be credentialed to be a United Way agency. And early on in the process, the one page is just really helpful to just explain what it is that we do. And there's a great jump off for new questions, whereas the annual report is great for, round 3 or round 4, when, you got to share all your financials and everything you do. I'm sure both these things are things that people probably already have in their tool belt, or that there are organizations already doing.
Yeah, and I like the structure, right? So it's, to your point, it's easy, here the problem, what we do, and here, here's the impact. Of course, I'm particularly excited to see the volunteer numbers down there. That's awesome. Yeah, and if and of course, right, with Civic Champs, right, our goal is to help track some of those metrics. For those, real quickly, we'll do a small plug for us here as well. And so if you are looking for sort of ways to track impact metrics, we try to make it easy for folks to track, like maybe check-ins, hours, things like that. So what you're looking at is our mobile app. And so we have lots of ways, we have a kiosk and whatnot, but this would be one easy way for a volunteer to sort of check in, check out using their mobile app. We automatically check people out if they forget, things like that. And then of course we also collect feedback, which is I think helpful for retention. And so people, volunteers can say whether they had a good or bad time. And again, sort of some of that data capture that you get as well. And then last but not least, right, from a reporting standpoint, hopefully, Eric, this is helpful, right, where you can easily find the total number of hours, total number of volunteers and activities that you could pull for reports. So yeah, wanted to share that real quickly with folks who aren't as familiar with us. So I know we're getting closer to sort of the 40-minute mark here. I think the other thing I wanted to touch on was just we said we were going to come back to storytelling, and what I saw a little bit here is you're using metrics for storytelling, right? You're using your numbers, you're showing the end results. You also have an awesome video with DJ that sort of talks about it from an individual perspective, right? Like the individual impact. And so how do any advice, right, in terms of how to craft compelling narratives for these grant competitions or for funding in general? How do you mix them? Like, what's the good ratio? How do you think about it?
Good question. Good question. Well, I usually think about it kind of what I said earlier, both quantitative with numbers and qualitative with stories. And really, I don't know of an exact ratio. I would say in most of my grant applications, they don't ask all the time for stories, but I usually tell them one anyways. And I think that is helpful. The DJ story, which is the reason why I wanted you to play that video, that's the story that we've found at Dream Alive that really, in a student's own words, really shares what it is that we do well. And it took 11 years to tell that story, not just DJ's life, but we've had so many other great stories of scholars in their own words. And so every year, my team and I it's a part of what we do as a staff internally is I have my staff share their stories. And there's a time of day where I knew all the students. We serve over 1,000 students now. So I don't know all the students. And I don't even get to spend as much time as I want to now because I'm out fundraising. And so it's just a requirement. We have our own Slack channel where we share stories all the time. So we'll get 10 or 11 stories a week from our team. And all the stories are great. Not every story hits like DJ's. I mean, that's like life-altering story. But we go through so many of those, and I like to tell a new story each year. And I've told DJ's story now for 2 or 3 years, and so I'm excited for the next story that really aligns well. But there's other stories that align for different grants that we do. I have a couple kids that have gone to Kelly School of Business. And those are some good stories worth telling for different applications. So I think it's just a matter of just make sure that you know what stories are happening, and it doesn't have to encapsulate everything that you're doing. It took me a long time to figure out I don't need to spurt out every little statistical detail that I think is important about Dream Alive. I just need to share one compelling one, and that's impactful enough. So if there's stories like that's been helpful for me. I don't have to tell everybody everything. I can just tell one really quality story of impact, and that can go a long way.
Yeah. And what about what about after winning? So so many of foundations they provide funding. After you get in, it's often much easier, in part to your point, because of that relationship, and you're able to build that relationship with the program officers. But how do you think about continuing to share and other than like meeting them and talking and but are there any sort of best practices that you've seen, any pitfalls that you've, mistakes that you made? Maybe that's also really interesting, right? To say, hey,
Yeah.
don't do this thing that right. But how do you, post win, is there anything that you would do that or you'd want to do more of, right? Even.
Yeah. Well, I think I'll start with this. There's a reason why we didn't apply to grants for a long time. I mean, grants come and go, in my opinion, more than individual donors, private donors, because there is a tendency for two things. One, by the very nature of grants, most grants are meant to help your organization start something. And now not all grants are, but most are. And I think it's helpful as somebody who leads the donation charge on our team to realize that I don't go into the grant. I mean, I don't expect, I hope and I pray and I'm looking forward to, I hope we have a long-term relationship with the MBA Foundation. But I don't think I would be a good leader in this area to just assume that money will be there for us after we finish our 2-year period. And so in every single one of our grants, I present a plan for what we're going to do at Dream Alive to find that money and continue it, elsewhere. And I think that's huge. That's, a sustainability piece. And don't get me wrong, there are grants that happen year after year. But even just internally, I've trained myself and our staff to not, I don't ever want to just assume that grant money is just always going to be there. So who do we know, or what relationships do we have, or what volunteers can we talk to, or what other sources of income can we have to replace? To me, once we get a win, my wife can give me some negative feedback about this. I'm such a big picture, 3 steps down the road, that we'll get a win like the MBA Foundation. And I'll be like, okay, yeah, but in 2 years, I have to have that money. So I need to go here, here, here. But I do think that it's the start. Like when you win a grant, to me, now the hard work comes. Now your team is implementing it, you're tracking it. Who do you tell the story to now to keep that funding going into the future?
Got it. Yeah, and I saw, and you all had another pretty neat video here. I'll kind of share, celebrating your grant, right? And so I think this is just a way to share.
If nobody gave me a chance, I don't know how far I would be.
Who would have known what I would have been without Dream Live helping me or giving me that push to be where I am today? I feel as if every kid should give an opportunity to be in something like this, no matter what.
So you have pretty amazing videos. Yeah, any tips even on just tactically, like who does your videos? Like how do you get them made? Is there like a low cost version? What would you recommend folks, in terms of creating, such, sort of punchy content? I'm sure the MBA Foundation was thrilled that you all had a cool video, to share back, right, as well. So
yeah, no, thanks for that. I feel like we could talk about the videos and stories just as long, if not longer, than the grants. So the short answer is 12 Star Media. They're based out of Noblesville, Indiana. It's just north of Indianapolis. 12 Star Media. They've done some great videos with other nonprofits here in the area. They also do filmmaking. Have a relationship with the founder there, and got introduced through another nonprofit here in Indianapolis. They're the ones that did that video. They did a DJ video. They did 2 or 3 other ones for our students. They're amazing. There's not a from putting on all credit to them. It's not a cheap thing. It's not there's not a budget friendly. When I met Rocky, and I think that's a good thing. When I met Rocky, I mean, they're in the business of making good film. And a lot of people will hire videos and they have a script. I wanted to hire somebody who does a good job telling stories and give them free access to my program. So he found the story on DJ to tell. He found 2 other stories of our kids to tell. We gave them 100. His team had all access to our program, and I think that is great. He's great at telling stories. That's what he does. That's what he's won awards for. So let the people who are good at it find the story and not try to control the narrative. So that was huge, but that took a lot. We actually got a grant from the Lilly Endowment here in Indianapolis to cover the cost of that. And I hope to get more grants to cover the cost of Rocky and the 12-star team, because they are amazing. And I think that they've helped us more on grant applications than they have individual donors. I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's just that story, to share that story in that manner is great. We've tried to replicate some low budget versions. So every one of those longer stories, we kind of cut up and put in snips and share. I have several outcomes that I want from my team every week on as far as like taking pictures with their phones, doing videos, always hiring a photographer for every event that we do. And so we try to do some lower budget things. Inevitably, the lower budget things never turn out as well as somebody who we're able to pay the money for. But that would be my recommendation. If you know somebody, if you know a videographer, if you find somebody that's a good storyteller, it's worth every penny to find. See if you can write a grant, take it to an arts grant to try to get your story told and kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
Yeah, no, that's that reminds me, again, sort of pulling it back to our own experience to some degree. When a lot of students, I give speeches to, about how to prepare for pitch competitions and whatnot. And my biggest feedback is, hire a graphic designer and get a pitch coach, right? Because it'll cost you maybe $500, right, for the 2, but it's a night and day difference if your content looks really nice and someone guides you and coaches you around the storytelling. And it's the ROI is always pretty high. And so I imagine this is a very similar case in terms of getting that professional touch, right? That makes you stand out. I'm guessing from the crowd. So
yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, yeah, and we do have one question here in the chat. So I wanted to make sure we covered that here. And so Ashley asked the question, do you recommend any particular training, Coursera or otherwise, that could provide an intro to grant writing or sourcing?
That's good. For me, I don't know if I have any recommendations for you. We are very blessed here in Indianapolis. We have the IU School of Philanthropy here in town. And being here in town, they offer different workshops and different certifications if you don't want to get your master's in philanthropy. I'm sure there are other great institutions across the country that have colleges of philanthropy in their city or certificates. I hope I don't speak, I don't mean this in a bad way, but I think taking a course or taking even better, a workshop or a high level overview would be great. As much coursework as I've taken, I was one of those weird people who, instead of pursuing a master's in philanthropy, pursued a master's in business administration and tried to do something a little different than what everybody else did. And at the end of the day, all the grants that I've written, I have so much more to learn. I should not be doing this webinar, but I really think the trial and error has been the best teacher of all. I remember some of these workshops. I can tell which ones have had an impact on me, but learning firsthand and getting a process for writing the grant and what I want to see and what I want to happen. I mean, there's just no substitute for it.
Yeah. Yeah, practice makes perfect. That makes total sense. Well, we're gonna sort of dive into our Q&A session here. So if there are other questions here, please do share that. Feel free to come off mute if that's helpful. One of the other tools or recommendations we might have from Civic Champs is we have a partner called Instrumental. They're a grant search tool or platform, and so would recommend folks take a look at them. Chloe can share a link here in the chat as well. In terms of, I think that we even provide a small discount code for folks that are interested. But they're a pretty great tool for folks that are looking for grants, and I think they also have some educational webinars and things like that too. But yeah, if there's any other questions, yeah, please put them in the chat here. And then otherwise, I'm going to share my screen again. And so if you do want to stay in touch with Eric or myself, here's our contact information. And so you can, feel free to reach out to us. And if you have questions or just want to be connected in some way, this is our, our LinkedIn, etc. We'll also be sharing this out again in an email afterwards. And so you can expect to see this in your mailboxes. And with that, let me see if there's any other questions here. I don't think I see any. So the last thing we have is just if you have some feedback for us, we're trying to collect more feedback about our webinars so that we can really tailor our content for you all, make sure that it's good. And so if you don't mind giving us some feedback, we'll share that here in the email follow-up as well, but also Chloe's putting that in the chat here. So just anything you like, things that maybe you have recommendations about, topics you want to hear in the future, anything is appreciated. But yeah, Eric, thank you so much again for joining us today. This is fantastic. Really appreciated the conversation and your willingness to join us today. And I think your advice was fantastic. So you are a pro.
Well, I don't know if I go that far, but I appreciate and I accept the encouragement. Thanks.
So, all right. Thanks, everyone.